Dupo? Any Dupo? Red Bud. I thought I saw, a lot of Red Bud, reppin'. I like it. Well, I'm from Springfield, Missouri. My name's Quinn Murphy. I've lived in Columbia probably 10 or so years. I have a 7th grader at Columbia named Dylan, who's somewhere around here. And I have a 14-year-old daughter named Mackenzie. But I grew up in Springfield, Missouri, and I was into sports like I see a lot of you guys are, and basketball was my thing. But I got to take you back and give you a picture of what I was like in high school. Okay, so the thing is, I had a smart mouth. Okay, there's that. The other thing is, I wasn't a very tough kid. Okay, so I'm like 6'5", 230, I was 6'5", 175. So I'm like a stick in high school, right? But I'm a stick who's always mouthing off to people. And that's sort of a bad combination because there's a lot of guys that aren't sticks and they are pretty tough, and finally they got sick of hearing me. And so I remember in high school one day, I'm standing out on the lawn. We could go out on the lawn in between classes for lunch. And I'm standing out on the lawn, and this kid had just had enough of my mouth. You know, he was so over it. And he started to push me. And I didn't, I was an athlete there, and, I didn't really get in a lot of fights, but this kid just kept pushing me, and like aggressively pushing me. And, I remember thinking, how am I gonna get out of this? Because he knew that I had mouthed off and I had been a smart aleck, and he was just over it, so he kept pushing me. Remember that story, because we're gonna come back to it. I've always liked to exercise. I run, do some kickboxing and boxing, fun stuff like that. I've always tried to eat healthy, keep myself in good shape. Last May, I'm out running. You guys know where the cemetery is up here? I live kind of over in that vicinity. There's a road that goes behind it. And I'm running on that cemetery road, and it's early in the morning, and you're sweating and spitting and stuff. And I spit, and I noticed this little bit of blood in this spit. And I mean, like, if you weren't looking for it, you'd never see it. It wasn't like a ton of blood. But I box, and so I'm thinking maybe I cut some of my mouth or something like that, no big deal. But the next day it's there too. And I'm thinking like, well, what's up with that? So I go to my primary care doctor and I tell him, hey, I had this thing, can you give me a Z-Pack? I think I got a cold, he gives me a Z-Pack, I go home. I'm still working out, and I'm, doing my thing and feeling fine, but the cough comes back. And the cough really wouldn't go away. And so I start to get a little bit worried about it, and I go back. And, I say, hey, I'm still spitting up a little bit of blood. What's up with this? And he says, well, let's send you for an x-ray. So I go for a chest x-ray, still thinking, no big deal. And I get out of the x-ray, and they say, you wait to get your results. Any of you guys have had MRIs or whatever, and they walk out, and the guy, I said, okay, so what happened? And he says, your doctor's gonna call you. And I'm like, no, he's not. And I drove straight to the doctor's office, because now I'm freaked, right? I mean, what's he gotta call me about? So I bust into this office, and he's like, okay, we'll squeeze you. And he comes in there and he says, there's a huge mass in your right lung. And I'm 44, and I'm now like panicked, and he says, we don't know what it is, but it's big, it's the size of a fist, and it's in your right lung. And so we need to go send you off for tests, and we need to go send you off for MRIs and scans. We basically need to see what it is, which I was all for. Next 2 weeks are just a blur. My wife and kids could probably tell you more than me what those next 2 weeks were like, but at the end of those 2 weeks, I sat down in a dark room, and I watched a oncologist pull up on a screen a x-ray of my chest. And she said, we're looking for lights, okay, because lights are cancer on these screenings. And so she starts rolling through slide to slide, and I'm there with my wife, and my kids are there, my parents have come down for this, and the lights start showing up. And not just like little lights, like a massive light. Like it looks like a piece of dynamite going off. Half my chest is encompassed in light. And she says, you've got a massive cancerous tumor in your right lung, and you've got cancer in your liver, And it's colon cancer, so it originated in your colon, and we may even see some of it in your gallbladder. So you got stage 4 cancer. And I'm 45. And, you know, my life's gone good to this point. I don't want to die from this stuff. And I'm scared. You know, I mean, that's just the reality. Bringing back those memories, that was tough. I got a 12 and a 14, man. I've done things right. I've eaten right. I've taken care of myself. I got to be there for them. You know, and so I'm scared, man. I'm really scared. And, you know, so for 3 days after I get these scan results back, I am like in fear like you can't believe. You know, I'm going to die. Because what do you guys know much about cancer? I mean, no one really does until you get it, right? I didn't know anything about it. What do I know about cancer? What I know about cancer is you don't beat it. And if you do, it ends stage 4. Stage 4, you don't beat. It's a death sentence, okay? And so I'm freaking out. I'm at home, and I'm trying to talk with my mom, with my wife about what are we going to do, you know, how do I make preparations for all this? And I'm scrambling, man. And that's what fear causes you to do. It causes you to scramble. So I'm scrambling for 3 days. And one day, I sat there, and this thought came into my head. What are you doing? I mean, you go to church every Sunday. You listen to the stories of the Bible. You hear the things that God has done in the Bible. They're massive things. This is a big God. If you believe it, then healing your cancer is like a small little tiny thing for God, right? No big deal. But if you don't believe it, then you ought to quit going to church and not worry about it. Because if you don't believe it, what's the point? You're wasting your time. And I remember thinking to myself that, man, that's a big thing. You know, this is sort of like a crossroads. I either believe it or I don't believe it. And if I believe it, I'm going to quit this worrying, and I'm going to pray to God that He would cure me. And so I prayed, and I prayed 2 things. I prayed that He would heal me so that I could raise my kids. Okay? For a parent, we want to be there when our kids are your guys' age. We remember what it was like. It's not the easiest thing in the world. Another thing I prayed was that if God was going to take me, that He would let me fight this thing in a way that would show my kids that I loved Him and I believed in Him start to finish. And so that was my commitment. And that was day 3. And I prayed that, and like, it was the weirdest thing, guys. Like, after that, I never was afraid. I knew in my heart I'm going to beat this thing. And people would say, I mean, now I talk to people and they say, man, I thought I was looking at a guy with a death sentence. And I'm like, well, you didn't say that then, thankfully. But, you know, like, I just wasn't scared. And so I did chemo. I did 12 rounds of chemo, and then I had a surgery in October of last year where they did liver surgery, they took out my gallbladder, they did a colonectomy, and then literally like 4 weeks later, the day I started feeling back to normal, they rushed me back in and took out half my right lung, which, by the way, is sort of a weird deal. You actually don't notice it. Isn't that weird? I still exercise. I don't even notice I'm missing half my right lung. But regardless, it wasn't fun. And so then I'm like all psyched up that I'm done with surgeries, and I come on, and I'm done with this thing, man. We're done with this, and I come home and they want to do 7 more rounds of chemo. And I'm like, man, I just don't know, man. I don't know. But in the back of my head, I kept thinking, I believe it or I don't. That's it. You believe it or you don't. I have faith or I don't. If I'm going to live in faith, why am I acting like I'm living in fear? And I wasn't afraid. I couldn't tell people I was afraid because I just wasn't. So I go with the oncologist. He says, well, you know, I want to work through some of these survival percentages with you. Now I don't want to hear it. No, I mean, we need to tell you like what the percentage survival for a guy that's 44 with stage 4 cancer is. I'm not going to hear it. Well, I'm going to tell you, no, you're not. I don't want to hear it. Okay, we go to the surgeon. All right, liver surgeon. What are you going to do? Let me explain how this procedure is going to go. No, I don't want to hear it. What do you mean you don't want to hear it? Well, I don't really care how it... I trust that I'm here for a reason. I trust that God will guide you to do what you need to do with my body. I don't need to know. And I didn't know. I think my wife knew. I didn't know. So I go into surgery. I come out of surgery. I've got 45 staples. I'm like, whoa, I had no idea, man. This is going to be like the coolest scar ever. I can lie about this. I make a really good lies about that. Sword fights, ninjas. So in any way, I just put it all in God's hands. And I felt like that's all I had, and that's 100% what I had at that time and now was just trusting God. And so I finished all that, and there were even times where I thought, Quinn, maybe you ought to think about this. Like, what? Because you don't know you're going to survive, right? I mean, the statistics, I'm sure, are terrible. So you don't know you're going to survive. So maybe you ought to think, like maybe you ought to plan. My mind literally wouldn't go there. Like God just sealed off that road for me. You cannot go down this road if I'm not going to survive, Quinn. You can't go down this road of what do I do if you don't survive. I couldn't put my head there, which was like crazy. I mean, you read of these miracles in the Bible, like what if you're having that? What if you're the subject of the miracle? That's what I felt like I was. And it was really weird and amazing all at once. But I tackled chemo. I'm like, okay, so what do you want to do? 2 doses? Let's do 4. You want to do 2 milliliters? No, let's do 3. Whatever. I mean, no fear. And so I got through it. And this month, after 12 rounds of chemos, 2 surgeries, and a lot of prayer, I was declared cancer-free. 100%. I remember the oncologist said, chemos are good, is a good drug, but man, I'm looking at your tumors, and this tumor was as big as a fist originally, and every time you came in, it was like the tumor just melted. I've never seen anything like it. They were like, it just looks like melted plastic on the inside of your lung. Then they come in the next day and say, okay, it used to be a softball, now it's an orange, now it's a golf ball, now it's a marble. And I'm like, man, you see what my God can do? You know what I'm saying? I mean, we limit God. I mean, why should we limit God? He can do these things. I'm telling you, he did it to me. And so it was just a remarkable experience that I'm incredibly life-changing experience. I'm grateful that I'm through. Here's what I want to tell you guys. In the Bible, we hear a lot about God being described and Jesus being described as a gentle Lord, a sacrificial lamb, a savior, prince of peace. These are all true terms. And I don't take anything away from them. But when I'm fighting stage 4 cancer, I need a warrior. That's what I needed. I didn't need a lamb at that time. I needed a lion. And thankfully, the Bible also describes Jesus as the Lion of the tribe of Judah. And I clung to that when I was in the middle of this. Revelations 5 says, stop your weeping, for the Lion of the tribe of Judah has overcome. I'd read like that, I'm like, I kind of dig that. That's cool. And then Proverbs 30, the lion which is mightiest among beasts does not turn back before any. And I'm like, that's my God, man. That's my God right there. That's what I want. Isaiah 31, as a lion or a young lion growls over his prey, and when shepherds come out against him, he trembles not at their shouting, so the Lord of hosts will come down to fight for you and me. I'm like, I'm starting to feel good about this, man. I mean, this is a fight I can win. Then I read in Genesis, Judah is a lion's whelp. He crouches, he lies in wait, and who dares to rouse him? So I start to picture God as a lion. Yeah, he's a lamb, but this is a lion. He's the king of the jungle, man. This guy, I need this. This is what I need. And then there are other scriptures that combined with the description of him as a lion. Joshua 1:9, have I not commanded you to be strong and courageous? Do not be afraid or discouraged, for the Lord your God will be with you wherever you go. I'm like, man, that meant a lot. Like wherever you go. Where I was going was some pretty dark places where I was scared and freaked out, but he was with me. Our God holds the oceans of the world in the palm of his hand, and who can stay his hand or ask, what are you doing? That's Daniel and Isaiah 40. And then at the end of all this, I read Malachi 3 that says, I am the Lord and I do not change. And I'm like, I'm reading these stories in the Bible of him saving people that really need him. Thank goodness he doesn't change, because that's the same God I needed throughout this. And he doesn't change. And I was thankful for that. So getting back to the kid that's pushing me. So here I am on the lawn and he's pushing me. And I mean, pushing me, like I said, aggressively. But like 30 times, man, he wouldn't leave me alone. Because see, he did it a couple times and he figured, man, I'm going to test Quinn and see if he'll do anything. And I wouldn't do anything. And he did another 5 or 10 times. And now he's making a point to show all my friends, there's nothing behind all this smart talk. He doesn't have it. And I didn't. And that's the thing. That was me. Okay? I was scared. I wanted out. I wasn't courageous. I didn't have the guts to stand up and say, quit pushing me or else it's on. You know? I didn't have that. That's Quinn Murphy. Okay? That was me and my constitution and my lack of courage. But with cancer and with the lion, it was entirely different. With the lion, I became a mighty warrior. You want a dose, give me 2. You want to do 10 treatments, give me 20. I was bulletproof. It didn't matter what they wanted to throw at me. I was invincible. And it wasn't me, it was our lion fighting through me. God promises that he's a mighty fortress in our time of need. And man, I'm telling you, I was in deep need, and he was there. And it's true. Everything he says in the Bible is true, and thank goodness that it is. So what about you? What's going to be your cancer? I pray that none of you have health problems in your lives, but nobody who was your age, including me, ever thought we'd have health problems. Will you have problems with your health? Will your struggle be the death of one of your loved ones? A sister, a brother, a mother, a grandparent? What about persecution? Will you be made fun of? Will some kid push you and want to fight you? Maybe at school, maybe somewhere else. What about poverty? What if you don't grow up to have all the great things you thought you'd have? That's your cancer. What about heartbreak? You fall in love with somebody and they break your heart. That's the real deal, man. That's hard to go through. It's no joke. Or loss of any kind. Each one of us will face a cancer of some sort during the course of our lives. Every adult in this room has. He promises us that we will face these things. In John 16, he says, in this world you will have tribulation, but be of good cheer, for I've overcome the world. What a promise. What a courageous and huge God we have that says, I've overcome the world and I do not change and I will be with you. So what will you do? Will you welcome the lion into your heart to guide and protect you when you go through whatever is your struggle or your cancer in your life someday? Or will you live in fear of what is or will come of your life? I can tell you I chose to live in faith, and God's strength protected me, even in the face of the world's scariest disease, cancer. My prayer for each one of you is that you'll do the same. For as God promises in the Bible, if God is for us, who can be against us? Thank you, guys.